Hi, my name is Ebony. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I will be going over the best books I've ever read according to Goodreads. I've been seeing this trend float around, and Haley in Bookland is the originator of this trend to my knowledge. I just thought I'd join into the fun, see if my personal ratings match up with the ratings of the users of Goodreads. But just to give you a little insight into what my personal book taste is, the genres that I've read most are literary fiction, poetry, contemporary fiction, and also memoirs, I would say. So let's see. We're gonna go with average rating, right? Is that how I do this? Oh, wow, I'm really surprised. Okay, so the first book on here that I actually had a feeling would be number one is Know My Name by Chanel Miller, and it's about the sexual assault case at Stanford in which Chanel Miller was initially presented to the media as Jane Doe. And it's about her experience processing the traumatic event and then also being a survivor of sexual assault and advocating for her voice and the proper representation in the judicial system that favors men, that favors people who are wealthy. Yeah, it was an amazing memoir. I think everyone needs to read this memoir. I rated it 5 stars and the average rating on Goodreads is 4.72. So my rating is right in line with the rating on Goodreads, and I 100% agree with this. I thought Know My Name was phenomenal. This is actually surprising. I will mention this book. This is a poetry collection, and this is the second highest rated book that I've ever read. So, and this is Grocery List Poems by Rhiannon and McGavin. This was phenomenal. I've also read this last year, and it is a collection of poetry that is kind of written in a way that romanticizes living in California. Rhiannon McGavin is the youth poet laureate, or was the youth poet laureate of Los Angeles, I believe, and the writing is phenomenal. I have one line memorized in my mind, and it goes, "Tell me the last time someone touched me with the tender feeling and I'll eat the clock." So I definitely align. I rated this 4 stars. The average rating on Goodreads is 4.56. Another book that is very highly rated on Goodreads, which I'm also not surprised by, is The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. I read this at the start of this year in January, and it is a collection of 2 letters that James Baldwin composed on the centennial anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation, detailing the current state of the Black experience in America. I just thought that the observations that James Baldwin makes were spot on. He talks a lot about the church's role in the Black community and how religion has been weaponized, and then he also talks about being a Black artist trying to coexist in both spaces. And what I found very interesting about this is that James Baldwin for a while was considering becoming a pastor, but he was very conflicted by it, and I just thought that this book is another must read for sure. I'm actually surprised. So my first 3 highest rated books that I've ever read have been nonfiction so far, which is interesting. A book that I kind of agree on, Homegoing, is up here as well by Achilles. Now this one isn't my absolute favorite, so it has a 4.47 rating. I think I rated it 4 stars here, but my actual rating is 3.5 and I rounded up to 4 stars. So for Homegoing, it follows 2 half-sisters as their lineage gets broken up into one sister's family stays in Africa while the other sister's half of the family gets sold into slavery and makes a way in living in America. So you get the Black experience in America juxtaposed to the experience living as if the family would have stayed in Ghana. And I did enjoy the story, although it reads a little bit more like a collection of short stories since each new chapter details another generation. It's very fascinating because of all of the historical relevance to it, but it's just not my favorite type of book to read per se, because I tend to really enjoy books that don't really have too many characters. I like sitting with a few characters and really getting into their psyche, so that's just my favorite type of book. But it is a great book and I do think that everyone should read it. So although I wouldn't rate it like closer to 5 stars, I definitely do recommend this book for sure. Oh, okay, so I think a fun book to discuss would for sure be The Song of Achilles. I am not surprised. I'm not surprised that this one has a 4.40 rating. I gave it 2.5 stars. The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller is a Greek retelling. If you are an avid like book content consumer, you have probably read The Song of Achilles. A lot of people absolutely love this book. It just wasn't it for me, truthfully. I thought the writing was phenomenal, superb, beautiful, poetic prose, right up my alley, but I kind of disliked Achilles as a character. I found that it dragged at times and it just felt like it took me forever to get through it, and I was just like, okay, when am I gonna be done with this? So I gave it 2.5 stars, and according to Goodreads, it's one of the best books I've ever read. I don't know, not to me. Okay, so the next book that is tied with The Song of Achilles is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And Between the World and Me is actually, now that I think about it, it has a very similar format to The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. And it is Ta-Nehisi Coates writing a letter to his son about his perception and understanding of the Black experience in America. The first few pages of this book really captivated me, and I have not read a more accurate portrayal of that experience of being Black in America. Yeah, I really agree with this rating. I gave this book 5 stars. The average rating on Goodreads is 4.40. Another book that I absolutely loved and adored, this is another poetry book, is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevado. The Poet X follows a Afro-Latina Dominican young girl named Xiomara as she is growing up in New York City. Coming of age story. It was very, very beautiful. I listened to the audiobook while also reading the text, and the entire story is written in poetry and is performed by Elizabeth Acevado, who is an outstanding spoken word artist. She just really makes the voice of Xiomara come alive, and at times I was finding it difficult to really differentiate who was speaking. It almost felt a little like autobiographical at times, but it's a stunning story coming of age about a young poet growing up in New York City, and she has very traditional conservative parents who are against her endeavors of becoming a poet, but she is finding her voice and path along the way. Up next is Alone with You in the Ether, which has an average rating of 4.39. I rated this book 5 stars. Alone with You in the Ether was, or is, my favorite romance that I've ever read. It really blends romance and literary fiction perfectly together. I would also even say like speculative fiction, truthfully too, because they are speculating a lot on the universe, the universal laws, and art. It's a beautiful, beautiful blend of a love story of 2 individuals, Aldo and Reagan, coming together. And yeah, I just thought it was a stunning story. I have not shut up about this book since I've read it, so I'll spare you the time. So what I'm seeing so far is that all of the nonfiction books are completely dominating this list for me. I think there have only been a handful of fiction books on here. Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that there are poetry collections that are rated high and not even like modern poetry collections by Tumblr and Instagram poets, because I've read my fair share of those as well, but just like really really, really moving works that I definitely agree with. The next book that is another memoir is Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Very few memoirs make me cry. This book made me bawl my eyes out. Crying in H Mart is written by Michelle Zauner, who is in Japanese Breakfast, and Crying in H Mart is about Michelle Zauner's relationship to her mother, as her mother has been diagnosed with cancer and then ultimately coming to grieve her mother, and she really uses food to tie in the connection she feels to her mother and to her Korean heritage. It's an absolutely moving, stunning memoir that will make you hungry and make you cry at the same time. Another book that I actually want to mention because it was out of my comfort zone, and I also read this last year. I guess I had the best reading year of my life last year. That's what this is showing me. It seems like 2021 was the best reading year of my entire life because I've been using Goodreads since 2019, and I want to say almost every single book that has been highly rated by Goodreads users is from last year. So let's give a shout out to 2021. Absolutely changed my life. Literature that year changed my life for sure. Absolutely stunning banger reads. So this will be the last book that I talk about for this video, and that book is Exhalation by Chiang. And Exhalation is a collection of short stories, sci-fi, so it is not something that I typically read, and this collection of short stories was about kind of technology, and there were different varying stories. Like one that I remember was about a gamer's world, kind of like Ready Player One, where you are immersed into a virtual world and you are basically raising pets in that world. That's kind of what it seemed like, or avatars or characters, and there are varying levels of that. So yeah, that was one story. There's also stories about like the written language as a form of technology. There was a very interesting story about different timelines and a device that was created in that world to access your different lives if you ever wanted to just like pop out of one life and go to another. And yeah, it was a very good collection of short stories. Honestly, I rated it 4 stars, and the average rating on Goodreads is 4.27, so I agree with that. Thank you for watching. That was a deep dive into the best books I've ever read according to Goodreads users. Let me know what you thought. Were you surprised by any of my top books? Let me know. If you would like to see more of me, you can hit that like and subscribe button. It's free of charge and really supports my channel, so I appreciate that. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.
I was like, yo.